Hi there fellow coders, welcome back to CodeMaster Quest. Today we have another intriguing problem related to the palindromes. So let's change to the browser and find out the problem statement in LeetCode. Here's the question description. Given a string s which consists of lowercase and uppercase letters, we should return the length of the longest palindrome that can be built with those letters. And one more thing here related to this question. Letters are case sensitive. And for example, capital A and lowercase a is not considered as a palindrome here, right? So if we look at the examples here, for this input, since we have 2D, we can use letter D inside the palindrome. And since we have 4C, we can use C 2 times inside the palindrome, right? But for A and B, because we have just one appearance of these letters, we can use just one of them in the center of the palindrome, right? So at the end, we should return the 7 as the longest palindrome length for this example. To solve this question, let's come back to the Visual Studio Code and try to implement it. To solve this question, let's bring the function signature. Let's go to the browser and bring the function signature to the Visual Studio Code. Okay. Now, as the first step to solve this problem, I want to define a helper function to find out the number of appearances for each character inside the input and store it inside a dictionary. So let's define a function, call it something like convert map. The input is going to be in a string, and at the end we want to return a dictionary, right? So let's say character to integer. Now let's define our dictionary here. Dict is going to be character to integer and empty at the beginning. Now let's make a for loop over the characters inside the input. For char in array s, and in each iteration we want to increase the number of appearances of these characters by 1 in dictionary. So let's say dict for char is going to increase by 1, and we need to define the default value here. The default value is going to be 0. And at the end, we need to return dict. Now let's come back to our longest palindrome function. At the beginning, we need to call the convert map function. So let's say dict is going to be convert map for s. And to store the longest palindrome length, let's define another variable, call it something like longest, and it's going to be 0 by default. Now let's make a for loop over the dictionary for char and cnt in dict, and for each character I want to find out the maximum even number of appearance of these characters inside the input, right? So and add it to the longest. So let's say longest is going to increase by cnt divided by 2 and then multiplied by 2. And after making this for loop, if the length of input is less than what we have in the longest, we can increase it by 1, since we can set 1 characters in the middle of the palindrome, right? So let's say longest is going to be increased by whether the s count is greater than longest. If this is the case, we want to increase it by 1, otherwise 0. And at the end, let's return longest. Now to test out whether our implementation is working correctly, let's come back to the browser, bring the example number 1, which is going to have the 7 as the output, and test it here. So let's say print longest palindrome for this input, right? So let's try to run this example. Wait for a second and see whether the output is going to be 7. There we go, it's 7. But we have one warning here. Since we are not using character, it's better to replace it with underscore. Right, so let's come here and replace this one with underscore. Now to make sure everything is working correctly, let's come back to browser and submit our solution to the LeetCode. hit the submit button. There we go. Here's the solution for this question. Thank you, everyone.